Mr. President, we've come to a crisis point in our country. In 2014, 18,893 people died due to a prescription opiate overdose. An average of 51 people die every day. What we're talking about, Mr. President, is legal prescription drugs that basically are produced by pharmaceuticals, great companies. They're approved by the Food and Drug Administration, which is supposed to look out for the well-being and welfare of all the citizens of this great country. They are prescribed to us by our doctors, the most trusted person outside of our family, and with that, it's become an epidemic. It's doing more harm to people than anything that I know of right now. And when I talk about an epidemic, we've lost over 200,000 people since 1999. And not to raise to the level that we should to fix this is ridiculous. And the trend is still going in the wrong direction, Mr. President. 16% more people died in 2014 than died in 2013. We've lost almost 200,000 Americans to prescription opiate abuse since 1999, as I've said, and we must take action to stop the epidemic. Unfortunately, a major barrier that those suffering from opiate addictions face in insufficient access to substance abuse treatment. Mr. President, there's not one of us that's said in the Senate, not one of us that we know, and nobody that we know in our states that doesn't have somebody in their immediate family, extended family, or a close friend that's not been affected, either by legal drug abuse or illicit drugs. And if you talk to them, those without the means, they have nothing. They have nowhere to go. There's no treatment centers, and we haven't stepped to the plate. All of the state budgets are taxed, if you will. All of the federal government's budget is, as you know, every time we do something, we have to find a pay for. So we've been looking for ways that we can do something and making sure that every state has a sufficient amount of treatment centers that they need to help people. In fact, between 2009 and 2013, only 22% of Americans suffering from opiate addiction participated in any form of addiction treatment. We talk about addiction treatment. For so many years, we all looked at any type of drug use as being a crime. And we put them away. We put them in jail. We spent $450 billion in the last 20 years. $450 billion incarceration. Not one time did we look and say, this might be an illness, and an illness needs treatment, and a treatment basically can cure somebody. We never thought along those lines. We have now, and it needs to change. Just in my state of West Virginia in 2014, 42,000 West Virginians, this includes 4,000 children. 4,000 children sought treatment for illegal abuse, but failed to receive it. They needed treatment. They said, please help us. Can you imagine a family? Think about this. A family who has done everything, gone through all of their resources, and the only way they can get their child help is to get them arrested, to get them, have a conviction against them, a felony, and then maybe they can go to drug court then. Isn't that sad? A sad scenario. The largest long-term facility in West Virginia with more than 100 beds is Recovery Point of Huntington. It has a waiting list that is 4 to 6 months long. This most successful treatment center is run by former addicts. These are people that have hit rock bottom. They know what it takes. And they've all come back. And they've been keeping themselves clean. They've been mentoring other people. And they've had more of a success rate than anything I know in my state. In 2014, about 15,000 West Virginians received some form of drug or alcohol abuse treatment. But nearly 60,000 West Virginians were identified as in need of substance abuse treatment and couldn't find it. Based on conversations with West Virginian State Police, 8 out of 10 of their calls, and if you check with any of us, Mr. President, in your state of Florida, the beautiful state of Florida, ask your law enforcement at the calls that they're called to, how many are drug-related. It's unbelievable. So when we look at the cost is prohibitive of what we're spending right now and what is taken out of our economy. These are people who have recognized that they need help. They've been turned away because there simply weren't enough facility beds or mental health providers in their community, or they couldn't afford the high-end priced ones that were out there. So that is why I joined my colleagues this week to introduce the Budgeting for Opiate Addiction Treatment Act. This lifeboat would establish a steady, sustainable funding stream to provide and expand access to substance abuse treatment. Mr. President, here's the difficult thing I know with a lot of my colleagues and friends on the other side of the aisle. Somehow we have to step to the plate and not worry about it and say, well, this is a tax. You can't put another tax. I've taken a pledge, no new taxes. I won't vote for a tax. How about voting for treatment? How about voting to help people? How about voting to put them back in the economic mainstream, being part of this great country of ours? How about basically taking them out of the prisons and not incarcerating people that aren't criminally, that don't have violent crimes or sexual crimes, that basically can be rehabilitated? So what we've said is, you know what? We have a tax on cigarettes because we know it's harmful to you. We have a tax on alcohol because we know it's harmful for you. We have nothing on opiates. So I've projected and basically put a piece of legislation, and we're looking for more and more sponsors all of the time. It would put 1 penny per milligram, 1 penny for every milligram of opiates only, which we know are addictive, and they were led us to believe that they weren't addictive. When they first came out in 1980, the pharmaceutical says, oh, this is a wonder drug, 24-hour relief of severe pain, non-addictive. Well, guess what? The genie's out of the bottle, and we've lost 200,000 citizens, and we've had doctors prescribing them. We've prescribed more opiates than anybody in the world. We consume more painkillers than anybody in the world. And not just anybody in the world, I'm talking about the entire world. This little country of ours, there's only 330 million of us. So when you look at the population of the world of 7 billion, we consume over 80% of all opiates produced in the world. 80% in a country that has 5% of the population of the world. Something's wrong. Something's dead wrong. This puts 1 penny. That 1 penny will generate, if you can believe this, just for opiates only, will generate $1.5 to $2 billion a year. $1.5 to $2 billion off of 1 penny. This is what we call the penny of gold. This is because basically we can help people. We can go back to every community, every state in this great country of ours, and help people get their lives back. Help people get cleared and cleaned and working again. Mr. President, also I come every week and read a letter. I read letters from all over the country. I read letters from my state of people that have been affected. The drug abuse, the legal drug abuse of opiates has been a silent killer. We haven't talked about it. We've had someone in our family, whether it's your child or whether it's a mother or father, aunt or uncle, cousin, and we were ashamed. And guess what? We continue to lose more and more people. Well, now they're coming forward. So I'm going to read you a letter, and every week I come to the Senate floor and I read these letters, and I want to read another one to you. These letters have a common theme. They all mention how hard it is to get themselves or loved ones into treatment. Sometimes it takes months, and sometimes it never happens. This problem stems from our lack of system to help those who are looking for help. We need permanent funding to create and expand substance abuse treatment facilities to help people get clean and stay clean. And I would say to all of my colleagues, this is not a Democrat or Republican problem. This is an American epidemic. And I don't believe that one person, whether you're Democrat or Republican, voting for 1 penny to try to get cure to people all over America that's been affected will cost anybody 1 vote. Not 1 vote. And I'm hoping they would consider that. Today, I'm reading an anonymous letter from a veteran in West Virginia about his struggle to get his 2 sons into treatment facilities they desperately need. This is his story. He says, well, my story, I'm sure many have heard before. I have a 34-year-old son. The first got addicted to Oxycontins while he was residing in Wyoming County. He had been in trouble with the law for stealing everything from ATVs or whatever he could get his hands on. Most addicts, as you know, basically commit a felony. It's larceny, grand larceny. Because after they've stolen from their families, then they steal from the family's friends, then they run out of people that won't turn them in, that they've stolen from, then they start stealing from anybody that they can break into their home, their neighborhoods, their communities, anything they can do to get their hands on the money that gives them the fix they need for their addiction. Then they end up with a felony. Then the system basically spirals down. So this young man stole everything he could get his hands on. Then he went to a methadone clinic. They tell you, oh, we have methadone and Suboxone. These are 2 wonder drugs. They'll help you. They'll clear you. They'll help you get off and wean off. They never do. They still have the heroin effect in them, the 2 drugs of methadone and Suboxone. And people get on those, and they can't get off of them either. When the methadone clinic was open in Beaver, West Virginia, he went to the clinic. I'm not sure what dosage they started at, but I know till recently he was on 120 milligrams a day. 120 milligrams a day, that's a lot. He had lost his take-homes, which is what they give him to self-medicate. So he had to drive from Mercer County to Beaver, West Virginia every day. He had trouble holding down jobs, so if he didn't have the money, he couldn't go and get what he needed. The clinic there only takes cash or credit card. I've helped my son finance his home, cars, lots, everything I can that I do was getting paid. I would pay these to protect my credit. This is the father's credit and mother, but I might not get my money back. So here recently I started cut him off, cold turkey. Now he has pawned most of what he's had in his house for cocaine. He says it's to help him with methadone withdrawals. I'm not sure, but his wife is getting ready to leave him. Their son has been living with me since November of 2015. My wife and I have called and tried to find him a detox and inpatient treatment. But since he hasn't weaned down at the clinic, they say he don't meet their criteria. He doesn't meet their criteria. My son hasn't had methadone, to the best of my knowledge, since May 8th of 2016. I've told him he can't live in his house if he can't pay his bills. He says he will accept treatment at a detox, so now he's ready. The only place I've found that may take him is the Behavioral Health of Appalachian Regional in Beckley for his depression and bipolar, and they will help him to be safe while going through withdrawals. We don't have the money to afford private care. He is on West Virginia Medicaid. Most places he can go to is out of state, and West Virginia won't pay for it. I'm so afraid that I'm going to lose my 34-year-old son to this dilemma. I hope there's someone out there that can hopefully get him free of his addiction so that we can live and prosper. He said, that's only one son. I have another son who's 30 years old. He too has become addicted, and he has mental health issues. I paid his rent for 2 months to remove him from my home just to get him out because he was so disruptive and searching for alternatives, such as he has been going to Southern Highlands for over 4 years for his bipolar treatment. He has been seeing the same physician. He has checked himself into the Pavilion, Mercer County, several times, but he checks himself right back out. And he says it's because they won't give him his medications that he wants. This is another problem that we have. A lot of people that go to the hospitals or go to their clinics, if they don't get what they want, they report and give a bad report to the doctor or the medical facility, and it hurts them on their reimbursement from Medicare and Medicaid. It's crazy. We have a piece of legislation to change that also. He has been prescribed Colopins and Neurontins. He prefers to either take them all at once per day or more than prescribed. Since I moved him out of this apartment, I hear he diverts them for other drugs. He hasn't had a job in years. I don't know what to do to help my two sons. I know the system hasn't seemed to benefit them at all, but they still get their medications and et cetera. It kind of keeps their addiction going on. If they don't get the prescribed ones, they search for street drugs, and they will sell their own souls, and even mine and their mothers, to get what they need. He basically throws up his hands and says, what's a parent to do? For months, it's hard to see your child in pain and maybe more willing to give them money and so forth, but I have learned that is only enabling them. But there are so many ones out there that it's too easy for them to get the drugs or divert them. I feel we need to do a few things. One, we must either put strict controls on methadone clinics, and I can assure you methadone clinics do not work and should not be prescribed to everyone, and it should be professionals who basically prescribe people that should go to methadone, and they should be closely regulated, and not let them keep our families hostage for their life. What they mean by that is once they go to these clinics, they never let them go. They're with them for life. 2 counselors and physicians need to try and understand what is a success in treatment or failure. If our children can't function in normal society, hold down a job, take medications as directed, that plan of treatment isn't working, let's do something else. Why keep them in the same type of program just to give them the fix they're looking for when they're never going to get cured? So don't just keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. Let's get them out of this type of a situation. It's not working, what's next? People are asking, they're begging for help. They truly are. In your beautiful state, Madam President, and all of our states, it's just atrocious what's going on. So we've got legislation. We're all working, I think, through a positive end here, and I think that we can put our politics aside. This is not Democrat or Republican, and I've said it over and over. This doesn't have a home. This is a killer. It's epidemic. 200,000 have died. In my state of West Virginia last year, 630 West Virginians died of legal prescription overdoses. This is not counting illicit, legal prescription overdoses. So I'm committed to fighting this with every breath I have in my body. I thank you all, and I would hope you would consider the pieces of legislation that we can work on in a bipartisan to really help every state and every person in America. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor.